What's up, True Crime World? You're here with Luminol on the Wall. I'm Bevy.
And I'm Becky. And today's case discusses a young transgender woman who, unbeknownst to her, makes friends with a self-proclaimed satanist. This is the case of Brianna Ghey. Listeners' discretion is advised, with a specific trigger warning for self-harm and transphobia. Good evening to all our LOTW friends and followers. Hey, Bev.
Hey, Beck. And hello to everyone tuning in to LOTW this week. This week's episode is going to be filled with, a lot of controversial shit, I think. Solely because, it's about transgender youth. And I think a lot of transgender youth go through a lot of turmoil for a bunch of different reasons. And this case is really no different.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to be a tough one to kind of listen to, I would assume. And yeah, if you're here for it, continue hitting the play button because we're about to get into it.
That's right, Bev.
Oh, and just a reminder before we do get into it, make sure you you're like, it's going to be serious, but yeah, just download our weekly episodes on whatever streaming platform you listen to us on, and make sure to give our podcast a rating. We'd love to get the feedback. You guys will let us know what you're thinking and what you guys think of us. So it's always helpful.
Always. And actually, me and Bev just celebrated something really awesome, a huge milestone. I'm not going to tell you what it is.
You'll have to go to our Instagram for that.
Yeah.
Or our Facebook.
Because we made a hella cute video.
It was cute, wasn't it?
Oh, so clearly we're our biggest fans.
Yeah.
Anyways, it's so cute, but go check us out on Instagram, Luminol on the Wall, and see what we celebrated because it's super exciting and we're really proud of our accomplishment.
Amen.
All right, Bev, let's get into it. All right, today's case is talking about three main characters. I'm going to tell you all about these characters before we actually get into the crime, Bev. There's a lot of backstory, so be patient, but it's also very interesting to see where these kids come from. So, our first character is a young girl named Scarlett Jenkinson. She grew up in a big and loving family in Cheshire village of Culcheth. Cheshire village was home to the middle class. It was a desired community for families because of its great schools and social scene. Scarlett grew up in a very stable household. She was the youngest of 4 children and the only girl. Scarlett was absolutely loved by her family. Unlike so many families, her parents were still together, and both were quite accomplished in their fields. Scarlett's mother was a teacher, and her father was a builder who also taught people coming into the trade how to do it. Although Scarlett came from this great and stable family, she had some personal struggles. She suffered from anxiety, and within a year of attending Culcheth High School, Scarlett actually began self-harming with knives. Scarlett had started doing this because her anxiety was more intense than before and just did not know how to cope with it. By the age of 13, Scarlett had started watching horror movies rather often. It started with an obsession for the movie Sweeney Todd. Now, Bev, have you ever seen that movie?
I have to admit, I have not.
So you have no idea what it's about?
No.
Okay. Well, for anyone that doesn't know like Bev, it is about a barber who kills people out of revenge for his late wife. I won't go into too many details because you might want to watch it someday. But it's about killing people.
So she's getting a little bit sadistic in her interests at the very least.
Yeah, just a smidge. Now, typically, that's not all that weird because, once we get into our teens, we start diversifying in our movie interests. And, that's when people typically start to branch out watching the horror films. But we typically do that with family or friends so that we can all be scared together, support each other through those tough movies. But not Scarlett. She would actually watch them by herself and said she got really excited by them. So it's a different emotion than the average Joe.
Yeah, I would say sadism isn't that common among people.
No?
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 I mean, it's
Is it not around 13-year-old girls? No?
Is that shocking? For those of you who don't know, sadism is getting pleasure from seeing or inflicting pain or humiliation or degradation on other people.
Yeah, so when you hear that, it's a little concerning that a young girl would be interested in that.
And said sadism.
Yes. So anyways, while attending Culcheth High School, Scarlett actually didn't have very many friends over the years. But she had one friend. It was said that she was a little bit to handle, had a really crude sense of humor, and it really turned people off. But good old Eddie was able to bear the storm. So as they went on with their lives through high school, we're going to jump all the way to 2022 because Scarlett gets in a bit of trouble. She gives a younger student 2 gummies. She convinces them to eat them, but they were laced with weed. Unfortunately, that student became really ill from them, and Scarlett got in trouble. The school actually gave the Jenkinson family 2 different choices. Number 1, Scarlett could be suspended, which is never good. Number 2, she could just switch schools altogether. So her family and her made the executive decision to transfer to Birchwood Community High School. Now, because of her lacing incident, she was actually sent to learn in the inclusion unit, which I've never actually heard about before. And maybe it's because I don't have kids. I'm completely unaware. But what an inclusion unit is, it allows a variety of different students with different kinds of anxieties, behavioral issues, aggressive tendencies, and learning disorders. And all these students get privatized timetables and lesson plans to help them with their individual needs. And because of Scarlett's behavioral issues and anxiety, she was deemed to be part of a vulnerable population that would benefit from this support. In this inclusion unit is where she met a girl named Brianna Ghey. Apparently, Brianna had complimented Scarlett on her eyeliner, and the 2 girls bonded over makeup. Now, although Scarlett is in a new school and seeming to make new friends, her and Eddie remain in contact via Snapchat and WhatsApp. They would sometimes hang out, but not very frequently. Now, we're going to go into Eddie's background, and he too was from a good home just like Scarlett. His mother was a graphic designer, his father was a manager of a trucking company, and ran an amateur kickboxing gym. Eddie had an older brother and a younger sister. He was a really good student, super intelligent, and a very clever young man. Throughout his childhood, though, his brother would frequently tease Eddie for being autistic, which must have impacted him pretty badly because he had actually not been diagnosed with autism as a child.
Oh, God.
I know, right?
That's
so mean.
Devastating.
Like, we
What
know
the
siblings,
heck?
they can be a-holes.
Of course, but lordy.
That's mean.
Especially when siblings are at, like, the adolescent age, like, making fun of someone. I mean, listen, you don't make fun of someone for autism, point blank, period.
No.
But when you're at that age, if your sibling is making fun of you for that, like, that has to affect your self-worth and your self-image. It's got to.
It has to,
Like,
right?
it's not going to be kind and endearing in any way.
Yes, I'm bringing it to a very negative light.
Exactly. And it's going to be sad. And I feel for Eddie.
I know. That made me so
sad.
sad. I was like, oh, man, my siblings would never look up to me if I did that.
No, God, no.
So
In fact, I would have hated you more
then you did.
than I did. Oh.
All right, Bev. So on top of his brother kind of making fun of him, I think we see it kind of impact his life because just like Scarlett, he did not have a lot of friends at school. So it does make sense that the 2 actually bonded and came together as friends.
They were all each other had, really, right?
Yes. But I do have to say, what Eddie says about Scarlett is pretty interesting because he says that she's not a normal person. She's
not a normal person.
Oh, God. Well, she's not a normal person. She made weird jokes about sinister things like dead babies and would refer to herself as a satanist. She would text Eddie odd things like, go shag your cats and stab your nan.
Stab your nan?
Yeah, like grandma.
Oh my gosh.
And like, I assume that's her humor or like she's testing him. It could go either way, but I assume it's humor at this point and maybe just weird. Now, most people would be really turned off like most of the students are. But like I said, Eddie, he stuck it out. They remain friends. But one day, Scarlett actually messaged Eddie about a new girl she had met at school, Brianna Ghey. Scarlett told Eddie they had met at the inclusion unit at school, and this is how the text conversation went. Now, I should warn you, Eddie would come across as maybe a little transphobic.
Okay.
So these are his
Trigger
words.
warning.
Yeah. Trigger warning. They're not mine. They're his. But it's interesting to see how they vary in their opinions of her.
So I'm guessing Brianna is transgender.
Yes, she is a transgender female.
Okay.
I'm obsessed with someone I know, but don't have feelings for them. She's called Brianna. I don't know how to explain. Also, she has a dick. LOL. Eddie asks, is it a femboy or a tranny? Tell me what you feel when you interact with it. Scarlett says, I got nervous and stuff, but my heart felt normal. Eddie, I don't think you're necessarily in love, but I think you're more curious and intrigued by its unnatural nature. Scarlett, she's really different. So that's their first interaction about Brianna, and I think it's worth noting how Scarlett is kind of really intrigued by this wonderful girl that she met and has befriended. And then Eddie is literally calling her an it.
Yeah, I hate that.
It's so horrible.
And not only that, but he used 2 derogatory terms to speak about Brianna, aside from just calling her an it. So I don't know if this is him being malicious or if he's just uneducated in the matter, but regardless, he is using things to kind of degrade her as a person.
And dehumanize her.
100%.
Now, a little bit about Brianna. She was from Warrington and was 16 at the time that she met Scarlett. She was transgender female from the age of 14. Her family said she had 2 different versions of herself. Online, she was really confident and outgoing. She made tons of TikTok videos of popular TikTok dances and makeup and beauty tutorials. And she had a really large following, actually. But at home in her real life, she actually suffered from really severe and debilitating social anxiety. It was really hard for her to be around so many other students. And the reason why was because as she was transitioning, she had actually been subjected to quite a bit of bullying by her peers, both mental and physical. And she was treated absolutely horribly. And so because of this, she really struggled with her mental health. And this was the reason why she was at the inclusion unit at school. Even though Brianna had a tough time in school, she strived to help other youth who had been transitioning find safe and affordable hormone therapies. So she really was passionate about helping that vulnerable population, as we said.
Which is something to be proud of, because it takes a very noble person to take your pain and want to help others as a result. Like, she knows what it's like to be bullied mentally and physically, and she wants to provide safety for other people who could be going through something similar. I respect that.
Absolutely, Bev. So even though Brianna was involved in mentoring youth and her TikTok following, it was nice to have made a new friend in Scarlett. On the outside, it seemed as though they had similar interests. But while they were getting to know each other, little did Brianna know that Scarlett had a dark, dark mind. And this was shown through text messages on WhatsApp, through their phones between Scarlett and Eddie. On December 5th, 2022, Scarlett sent Eddie an advertisement for an underground website for people who like rape, torture, and murder. And it was followed up with a text exchange that showed an obsession with violence and murder. Scarlett said, I love watching torture vids, real ones on the dark web. I've liked this stuff for a while, and I finally found a good red room. Now, Bev, do you know what a red room is?
No, you ran this by me before we started the podcast, and I did not know. I thought it was like a sex room.
Yes, you did.
But I
did
was
too.
Mistaken.
Yes, we were unaware.
Way freakier than that.
Yeah. So, according to the interweb, it is a hidden website or service on the dark web where you can see and or participate in interactive torture or murder. So,
what the heck, right?
Right? This is what Scarlett, a 15-year-old girl, is looking at.
That is insane that that even exists.
One thing I have to just say, the dark web confuses the hell out of me.
Fair.
And I say that because I'm used to like a normal internet browser. I didn't even realize that it's like you have to get a certain browser to get it, to like look at the dark web. It just confuses me because in my mind there's just 1 or 2 browsers. And they all look up Google.
Yeah, I know. That's my main search engine. Just Google. I always
Google.
wonder, I'm like, how do people get to the dark web? Like, what is it? It seems like this like elusive like thing that like
is there, but maybe
we don't
it's
know
not.
how to get it or go to it. Not that I want to,
No,
but it's
no.
just like this weird thing that you're like, I know it exists, but like
it kind of confuses me every time I think about it.
100%. It's crazy that she's on it.
And I'm sure if we were to like go and search, we could figure it all out. But the fact that a 15-year-old girl is doing that blows my mind.
It really speaks to her state of mind at this point. Because like when I was 15, there was like no knowledge of this kind of thing whatsoever, right? Like absolutely not. So for a 15-year-old girl to know about the dark web, to frequent it, like it kind of shows she's a little twisted up in the head, hey?
Oh, for sure. And she's sharing it with her closest friend.
Freaky.
Yeah. So Eddie doesn't really respond to that. He gets the message, and that is kind of, it ends there for now. However, in early 2023, just about a month later, Eddie and Scarlett ended up making a kill list. It had 5 different names on it. All but one name is redacted on the internet because they were all youth at the time. Although we don't have their names, there is some information about the boys on this list. One of the boys had apparently told the teachers that Scarlett had been taking pills and LSD. There were 3 other boys. 2 had been unpleasant to Scarlett's boyfriend around that time, and shockingly, the 5th name was Brianna Ghey, Scarlett's new friend.
Crazy to hear that, considering how she was adorning her in her text to Eddie.
Exactly. Now, Bev, with this kill list, they also created a very generalized murder plan that could work on any one of these 5 victims. And they shared it through online messages, which is silly, but they're teenagers. They began with one of the boys, and Eddie texted, "Scarlett, you were to distract one of the boys. Then I would come from behind with a knife and stab the boy in the neck." Scarlett messages back, "Just stab him, slit his throat, and stab his back." Then Eddie responds, "Could I really stab him?" Scarlett says, "Sure. I know a hidden spot nobody goes to in Linear Park." How creepy is that, Bev?
Super, super creepy. I couldn't even imagine talking like this with a person that I know.
No. Like, blows my mind.
The fact that they even have a place picked out is just ludicrous, Becky.
Ludicrous. You love that word, don't you?
Do I use it a lot?
I've heard you say it a couple times.
It's a good one.
That it is. Well, Bev, in January 2023, Scarlett and Eddie tried to lure a boy to his death. Scarlett had set up a fake Instagram account to befriend the young man. He didn't fall for it. He ended up blocking her online. And after this didn't work out, Scarlett and Eddie go to the 5th name. They skip right over the other boys. They think it's going to be too hard to get them where they need him to be. So they start talking about Brianna Ghey.
That's very sad because they're using Scarlett's previous relationship with Brianna, like not just relationship, a freaking friendship, to gain trust.
Well, exactly.
So that they can be successful.
Yeah. And because they have that trust, it's going to be rather easy to lure her to the park.
Yeah, she'll go on the pretense of like having a nice time with a friend.
Exactly. So after they decide that Brianna's their girl, Eddie messages Scarlett. He says, "I want to see if it will scream like a man or a girl."
Ugh. Using it again.
He is the worst.
He's the worst.
Like, I'm starting to think he's maybe a little transphobic.
Yeah, I definitely think there's no real other way to take that.
Well, exactly. And so, Bev, they put their plan into action on January 27th, 2023. Scarlett had invited Brianna to go to Linear Park to do cocaine. Scarlett texted Eddie, she's agreed to come to Culcheth tomorrow. Eddie responds, "So I bring my knife?" Scarlett, "Yes, it's definitely sharp enough, by the way. Meet at the wooden post at Linear at 12. We'll go over the plan again, and I'll show you where I'm killing her. And then we both walk to the library to meet her. Then we'll grab onto Brianna and slit her throat. When she starts to fall, stab her in the back, then pass me the knife. I want to stab her at least once, even if she's dead, 'cause it's fun, LOL. Eddie responds, "Let's have 2 words, one for getting the knife ready and another to stab." Scarlett says, for getting the knife ready, I'll look at you and cough. And to stab, I'll say gay. After all this planning, Brianna texts Scarlett saying that she couldn't make it because she actually had to go to a family dinner. After the plan was thwarted, Scarlett's desire to kill Brianna grew. She was absolutely relentless after this. She texted Eddie, "Let's kill Brianna tomorrow, 6 p.m. Eddie responds, "If I can, then yes." Scarlett says, "Please come out tomorrow between 6 p.m. and 8 p.m. And Eddie, being a good student, says, "It's a school day. I'll be eating around 7 p.m. Scarlett says, "Please, I want it done ASAP. Eddie says, "Sorry, can't, it's a school night." Scarlett says, "I don't want to wait. I want her to die really badly. I just want to see pure horror on her face and hear her scream in pain." So you can see how Scarlett is really progressing and really determined to kill not just Scarlett, but really anyone. Scarlett just happens to be their choice of victim.
It's really sad because she doesn't have a clear rhyme or reason other than wanting pleasure from this murder.
Exactly.
Like, Brianna has done nothing to deserve this. Nothing. Not that you would ever be deserving of someone doing this to you, but like she has done nothing to Scarlett.
Exactly.
And Scarlett just wants her sick and twisted and sadistic fantasy to be played out to gain pleasure from it. And unfortunately, Brianna is the only person that is really friends with Scarlett aside from Eddie that she can prey upon.
Exactly. Well, Bev, Scarlett was so determined to kill Brianna that a few days later, after she had texted Eddie those messages, she actually sent him a photo of a handwritten note to him, and it had a brand new plan with a specific date to kill Brianna. It was almost like a kill itinerary. She proposed Saturday, February 11th, 2023, and the note said, "Meet Eddie at Wooden Post at 1 p.m. Walk down to Library Bus Stop. Wait for Brianna to get off bus. Then the three of us walk down to Linear Park, go to the pipe tunnel area. I say code word to Eddie. He stabs her in the back while Scarlett stabs her in the stomach. Eddie drags body into the area. We both cover her up with logs, etc."
Terrible.
Right? And to follow up, as February 11th approached, Scarlett texted Eddie, "I'm excited about Saturday." Eddie, this guy, first of all, I have to say before I even say what he says, he is so nonchalant about this. It is, if it wasn't real, it would be funny, but it is real, so it's not. So when she says she's excited about Saturday, Eddie says, "Why?" Scarlett, "Brianna, remember?" Eddie says, "Oh yeah." And then Scarlett asks him again, "Are you excited?" Eddie says, "I forgot." Scarlett says, "How?" Eddie, "Because I'm eating." What a dense mofo.
Like, what the heck? Because I'm eating?
Right? Like,
they're just talking about murder so casually. And it's so weird how Scarlett, like, can't. It really shows just, like, her mindset. Like, she's like, how can you not be excited? Like, this is going to be the best day ever. Like, I've been looking forward to this. Like, please tell me you're as excited as I am because I can't wait.
yeah.
Like, it's so weird. It's like our Saturday plans to go hang out and go to a movie. Can't wait. Like,
Right?
that's like what the vibe is right now. And it is so sick and twisted that it's not a movie. It is a murder. Like, wow. I'm just shocked.
I know. It's like I said, it is comical because it's just so, like, nonchalant, but also shocking.
Because it's so nonchalant. And, like, the topic of conversation is so crazy.
Exactly. Now, Bev, we're going to jump right forward to February 11th. In the early afternoon, Brianna texts her mom, "I'm leaving, going to see Scarlett." Dogs are locked up, and she heads towards the bus. But because of her really bad anxiety, she started to feel really anxious on the bus. So she texted her mom, but her mom consoles her and ultimately encourages her to continue to go see her friends. Brianna ends up making her journey and meets Scarlett and Eddie at the bus stop. Now, on CCTV camera, Brianna is wearing a distinct outfit. It stands out for many reasons. One, being the type of outfit, it was not appropriate for the season. She must have been freezing. And two, what she was wearing was just a little standoutish. It was a white fluffy jacket with a short skirt and knee-high socks. So remember, this is in February, not the warmest month. Her outfit was eye-catching, and because of this, several people remembered seeing her that day. The triad was caught on CCTV camera heading from the bus stop to Linear Park. Unfortunately, the park was not fitted with cameras. The trio ended up walking about 15 minutes into the park, and then at 3:06, Scarlett sent Brianna a text that read, "Girl, where are you?" And then between 3:07 and 3:13, Brianna was stabbed.
So they sent the text to establish that they were not with her.
Exactly, Bev. So that's how much thought they're putting into it. And it's just so disgusting. Almost immediately after Brianna had been attacked, a male and female couple out walking their dogs saw Scarlett and Eddie. They noticed something on the ground, and they recalled that Eddie was crouched over top of it and Scarlett was standing nearby. As the dog walkers got close, Eddie and Scarlett got startled and they started running away through a field. As the dog walkers approached the scene, they noticed that the female assailant, aka Scarlett, stopped in the middle of the field, turned around, and stared directly into the female dog walker's eyes for a couple seconds, and then turned around and ran off again. This frightened the woman to the core. And as they got closer to the scene, they realized now that the young man had been standing over a young girl with red hair wearing a fuzzy white coat. She was laying on a set of stairs. Her body was left in a really unusual contorted position. Her coat and back was covered in blood. They couldn't see her face, and they couldn't tell if she was breathing or not. The couple obviously called emergency services, and they told the operator that they feared the young girl was already dead, and that they didn't think that there was anything anyone could do. By 3:25, only 12 minutes later, PC Andrew Chadwick had arrived on scene and immediately began CPR. When the paramedics arrived, they continued to work on Brianna for 40 more minutes. However, at 4:02 p.m. on February 11th, Brianna Ghey was pronounced dead.
I have a really odd thought, but it's like almost like a movie in the sense that, you know how like movies have symbolism?
Yes.
And foreshadowing? It is so creepy because you have Scarlett as a proclaimed satanist, and then you have Brianna, who is clothed in white, like a pure person. Like, you know what I mean? Like
yes.
The symbolism of her being pure and the foreshadowing of like the person dressed in white will be the one that gets victimized and murdered. Like, it's like you can't write it better in a script. It's crazy to me.
Oh, yeah. Like, obviously she had no idea, obviously. But it is crazy that she was dressed in all white. Like a little angel.
Yeah, exactly.
Little angel baby.
Exactly.
Now, Bev, during the efforts to save Brianna, Scarlett and Eddie, as we know, had taken off on foot. They had taken Brianna's phone and dropped it in a drain near Scarlett's home. And the two split up, and they both went to their respected houses. Almost immediately, Scarlett hopped online trying to create a false trail. She sent Eddie news reports of the incident at Linear Park and messaged him saying, "My brother just told me not to go to Linear Park because a woman just got stabbed." Eddie messaged back, "Jesus, really? Holy crap." Scarlett sent another message to Brianna's phone, and it said, "Girl, is everything okay? And some teenage girl got killed at Linear Park. It's on the news everywhere. And why did you ditch us for some random man from Manchester? Like, WTF. That is so fucked up." And that's what Scarlett said or messaged to Brianna.
Like, zero empathy. I'm disgusted hearing that.
Mm-hmm.
I feel so sad. So sad. Like, oh, my heart just hurts.
I know.
They're sick. They're both sick.
Yeah, they are sick and twisted, Bev. Well, later that night, Scarlett texted Eddie, "Do you have anxiety about getting caught?" Eddie, being a lyrical genius, he just says probably.
Oh, God. This kid. But also, it's funny to me, like, the rationale of a teenager, because they're basically messaging Brianna to kind of cover up what they've done, right? thinking, oh, if the cops see this, then they'll know, like,
we didn't do anything.
But then they're texting each other.
Like, so freely, too, about, like, their
about
plans.
the murder. It's like, if you ever thought that, like, your text to Brianna would be seen by law enforcement, do you not ever think that, like,
those also will be seen?
Yours could also potentially be seen?
Yeah. It feels like that didn't cross their mind at all.
Obviously not. It's just, like, stupid.
Yeah. So after Eddie says probably, Scarlett says, "You're not going to get caught. Don't worry. Police are shit here." Yeah, because you're 15.
Yeah.
Now, throughout the afternoon of February 11th, the police get to work at the crime scene. There are 2 pop bottles near, so they collect them. They start to trace Brianna's last known movements, and within 24 hours, Brianna's autopsy was conducted, rather quickly, obviously. They noted, Bev, that she had 28 individual stab wounds, 12 proving she had been attacked initially from behind. The deepest wound was to be 5 inches deep. Investigators were absolutely shocked with the level of brutality here.
Overkill.
Overkill is right.
Wow. You know how in their plan, they each wanted a chance to stab Brianna, but it's like almost like they went back and forth and were just like having a heyday with it, you know?
Oh yeah, they went ballistic. Now also within the first 24 hours, the police received a phone call from, guess who, Bev?
Scarlett?
Her mom.
Scarlett's mom?
Scarlett's mom.
Holy shit.
What Scarlett's mom tells the police is that she and Scarlett had had a previous conversation where Scarlett said that Brianna had met up with a guy while they were at the park. Now, Scarlett's mom had no idea if this was even relevant to the investigation, but she got Scarlett to jump on the line with the police and explain the whole story in detail of what she had just told her mom.
Right. The mom's thinking you were actually with this girl. You might have valuable information for the cops at this point.
Exactly. Tell them everything you know. So what Scarlett told the police was, "We went to Linear. We sat on the bench for a bit. Brianna looked at her phone and said she needed to go and meet some boy. He was 17 and from Manchester. Scarlett said, I didn't know his name or anything. Brianna said he was picking her up and stormed off. Scarlett told the cops that before Brianna left, she had actually gotten really pissed off at her because she felt that Scarlett was questioning her and didn't want to be interrogated, and that before storming off, Brianna had yelled at her. Scarlett told the police that she had no idea who this man was, but believed him to be from online. After Brianna had left, she said that her and Eddie stayed in Linear for a bit and then went to Culcheth. Then she had gone back home, and so did he. By this point, the police also had CCTV footage, and they can see that Brianna, Scarlett, and Eddie all had been together going into the park. And they can also see that Eddie and Scarlett left without Brianna. However, there is no footage of Brianna leaving with any random man.
Or leaving in general.
In
as
general,
we know.
yeah. And then only an hour after Scarlett's mom had called the police, Scarlett messaged Eddie telling him to corroborate her story. She messages him saying, I haven't gone to the station, but my mom phoned the police. Not sure what's going to happen. Make sure story adds up. Say to police everything. We met Brianna at 1:30, walked to Linear, and sat and chilled on the bench. Then Brianna looked at her phone and said she was going to meet some lad and walked off. Went Sainsbury's, sat and chilled at Stone area. Then you got bus home, and I went home. Shortly after Scarlett messaged Eddie, she made a post saying Brianna was one of the best people that she had ever met, and such an amazing friend. It's so sickening what got done to her. Within 2.5 hours of Scarlett's mom placing that phone call to the police station, the police actually showed up on Eddie and Scarlett's doorsteps. They were there to arrest both of them under the suspicion of murder.
Especially because they have the eyewitness of those people walking the dog, seeing a young girl and a young man walking away from the dead body.
Like running away.
Running away. So that with all the CCTV footage, like... It's
That
almost like they
alone.
don't even need the text.
I know, right? This is just like icing on the cake.
The text.
Yes. Just the text. Nothing else. Just that they have the text as evidence.
Well, they will.
Yes.
I'm sure, because like that has got to at least warrant a subpoena for their phone records.
Absolutely, Bev. So while they were arresting Eddie, he says to police, "I will tell you everything."
Oh my gosh.
You got me. I'll tell you. But while arresting Scarlett, she asks the police if the reason she was being arrested was because she was the last person to see her. She wanted to know why she was a suspect. They still take her in. They don't answer her questions. They just take her and Eddie right down to the station. Scarlett continues with her same story that they had been at Linear Park, Brianna got a text from a guy and then left. But in the other room, just a few doors down, Eddie was telling detectives a much different version.
He's singing.
Kind of he is. He said himself and Scarlett had met Brianna at the bus stop, walked to Linear. While in the park, he left the two girls for a couple minutes to go pee in the vegetation and tree area. When he got back, he saw Scarlett stabbing Brianna.
Oh my gosh, he throws her under the bus.
Under the bus.
Yeah. Jeez. Yeah.
In fact,
he's like, when push comes to shove,
I'm not going down for this.
I'm not going down with her.
No.
Holy crap.
So when he sees that, he makes his way over to see Brianna and see if she was still alive. He said, "I put my hands on her to see if she was breathing, but I got blood on my hands. I panicked and I ran." Investigators asked, "Did you see where the blood was coming from?" Eddie says, "Everywhere." Which, 28 stab wounds? Yes, it's going to be coming from everywhere.
Yeah, but here's the other thing is we have an eyewitness person saying you ran away with someone who you would have suspected to have murdered this girl. So it's just unbelievable.
It is unbelievable. Well, the investigators then ask him, "How did Scarlett seem when you guys were walking back?" Eddie says, "Calm." And they ask him, "Well, how were you?" He says, "I was panicked, stressed, shocked, obviously."
You weren't scared to be around a person who just murdered somebody? No?
I would be. He could probably take her, and they're really good friends.
But still, I'd be freaking terrified. Like, if you
too.
just saw that, I wouldn't be anywhere near that person, right? Because if this was a surprise to you and you didn't know that you were safe, you would have to be thinking, like, I'm next.
Oh, for sure. Kind of on the other side, though, they planned this all together, and maybe he was just surprised at how quickly she had done it and thought, hey, maybe she would have waited for him.
Okay,
that was their plan.
Maybe that is a possibility. Like, if you are truly thinking of it from the perspective that she had just taken it upon herself to actually commit the murder while he was away, then he wouldn't be as scared because he would know that, like, the plan was only to murder Brianna.
Exactly.
That's a fair point.
Yeah.
That is a fair point, Becky.
So he might have not been so scared. But it's weird to hear him say that Scarlett was so calm.
Yeah, but it's also expected given, like, her, excitement over the matter.
Yeah, she's probably just, like, walk and be like, yeah, we did that. Awesome. Like a little psycho. So after talking to the two teens, the investigators got warrants for Eddie and Scarlett's homes. They find amazing evidence. In Eddie's dresser, they find a hunting knife that eventually comes back with Brianna's DNA on it, as well as the clothing that he was seen wearing on CCTV cameras. They took that in and found Brianna's blood all over it as well, which he already admits to at least checking on her, so we know he's going to have blood, regardless.
Well, at least on his hands, but to be on his clothing,
his shoes,
suspect.
Sounds a little spray.
It does.
Now, in Scarlett's room, they find shoes with blood on them. It turns out to be that blood is Eddie's. How could that have happened, Bev?
That's a great question, Becky. I'm left scratching my head. Why don't you enlighten me, darling?
Okay, I actually don't know.
Oh,
I never found an answer
what?
to it. I know. I assume...
Are we thinking the same thing right now?
I think we are.
Oh my God, can I say it?
Telekinesis.
Oh, sister telekinesis. Whoop, 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 whoop.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, because usually when you're stabbing someone, your hand slides down the blade and you can slice your hand open.
Yes.
Hence, bloody blood, drippy drip, drip.
Exactly.
On the shoe.
Bingo, baby. Yes. So although I don't really know if that's 100% true, that is what we're both thinking.
Yeah, there's like, what other way?
Exactly.
Well, does he have a scratch or a cut on his hand?
Okay, Bev, I couldn't find anything that showed he had a cut on his hand.
But let's be fair. Even if that isn't included in anything, one, it's probably what happened. And two, like they need that additional like evidence, okay? There's a plethora.
Yeah.
Plethora of evidence that points to him as being someone who was an accomplice in this. So
Exactly. So who cares?
We're right. Fuck the evidence.
That's right. Right. We don't like that, actually. Who needs evidence when we have a hunch?
Exactly.
On top of Eddie's blood being on the shoes, they also found that handwritten note that Scarlett had taken a photo of and sent to Eddie.
The itinerary.
Exactly. They had found that in her bedroom.
Wow. She didn't even destroy it. Not that it would have done anything because they are going to get her phone records, but like.
No attempt to cover that up.
Jeez.
Like, they'll never find this note
cocky.
in my bedroom. She's cocky, yeah. So at this point, everyone is realizing just how much evidence they actually have against the two teens. And at that point, Scarlett and Eddie are advised to no longer speak with detectives. And that when they were asked questions, that they would just reply, no comment, going forward. At the time, this crime was highly publicized, but due to the age of Scarlett and Eddie, the courts refused to release their names. So, although this brutal crime was being spoken of, no one knew who was being arrested or who was suspected of doing it. But the trial judge decided that once, or if they were found guilty and they were being sentenced, that their names would be released into the public at that time. Because if they were found guilty, it did not matter if they were 15 or 18 years old when their name was released to the public. Now, prior to the hearing, both of the teens were evaluated, psychologically, of course, because who frickin' does this? Now, it was found that Scarlett had ADD, anxiety, and mild autism. Eddie was diagnosed with high levels of social anxiety and autism.
Oh, that's kind of odd considering his brother actually made fun of him for being autistic, and it actually ended up being true.
Yeah, that's really weird, isn't it?
Kind of a weird...
Although his brother was being a dick about it.
Yeah, it was technically not wrong.
Not wrong.
Weird.
Although making fun of him is not right and completely unjust, because at the time he had no idea.
Yeah, it was fucked up. Let's just put it out there. But
you're wrong for that.
It is weird that
but weird.
His brother actually ended up having autism.
Yeah, totally. So leading up to the trial, on top of him finding out that he was on the spectrum, he actually developed selective mutism. This means that he was completely nonverbal, and he actually had to write down answers. This happened because it's a part of a response to an anxiety disorder when we are placed under a lot of stress.
Right.
So fortunately, he was only able to speak to his mother. That must have been like his safe place.
That makes
something
sense.
Like that. So the judge actually allowed through the trial him to answer any questions, even enter his not guilty plea via writing.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's really
that's accommodating.
Very.
I mean, what else are you going to do? The guy has become nonverbal, right?
Yeah.
Wow.
Blink twice.
I mean, considering he did this horrific crime, or at least that's where the trial is going, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to have sympathy, but it's also kind of like a little sad to see someone so young like be under that much stress as a result of their choices. But like it is a little sad to see someone be under that much stress that that's what they develop.
Mm-hmm.
Damn.
It's really sad. So Bev, the trial begins November 27th, 2023. So actually not that long ago. Both defendants, aka Eddie and Scarlett, blamed one another for the killing. Neither one of them took responsibility for the crime.
Wow.
And as I said, because of Eddie's selective mutism, he was allowed to give all his testimony and answers in writing. Even though they were blaming each other, the evidence painted a very clear picture and left very little to the imagination. What was a bit shocking through their whole trial, neither one of them seemed to have any remorse for this brutal crime.
Yeah, they're just mostly keen on not going down for it, right? Blaming each other.
Exactly.
And it's very evident just in like their communications prior to and their actions after that they had no empathy.
Zero.
Yeah.
This all must have really spoke to the jury, and after all the evidence had been shown, the jury stepped out for deliberation. It took them only 4.5 hours before both Scarlett and Eddie were found guilty.
Of first-degree murder, obviously.
Yes. Now, on February 2nd, 2024, just a month ago, Scarlett finally confessed that she had stabbed Brianna. She said Eddie had started the attack, like planned, but he all of a sudden got cold feet and could not continue. At that point, Scarlett took over. When asked, she couldn't recall how many times that she had stabbed Brianna, so she just said a lot.
Wow.
Now, when I hear that, Bev, it actually makes me think that maybe her story is kind of true, because he was supposed to stab her in the back, remember, in their little plan?
Yes.
And there was only 8 stab wounds in the back, and the rest were in the front. So if he had stabbed her a couple times, gotten cold feet, gave the knife to Scarlett, that's where the remainder of the stab wounds came from.
It makes a lot of sense.
It does. However, it would make only part of Eddie's story true.
Right. Like maybe he did get scared, run off, maybe pee. I don't know.
Puke.
Like who knows? People do that when they're stressed or scared.
Yes, they do. And then come back and check, be like, oh my gosh, what have we done? Check on her.
Right. So maybe he just omitted his part in it.
It's possible.
But like some of his story might have actually been true is kind of what you're saying.
Yeah. Like if you kind of read between both of their lines of their stories, it almost seems like we can get a full picture
of what happened.
Yeah. Obviously, we don't know 100%, but it does sound pretty clear.
Another point to make in his story and just how I think it wasn't the full truth is that I think Brianna would have had to been stabbed by 2 people, specifically because if there was only one attacker, as Eddie had claimed, Scarlett, then I don't think there would have been stab wounds in the back, like at all. Because what is it, like if he's off peeing and then that's when the attack starts, why would Scarlett be behind Brianna without her kind of like turning and looking? You know what I mean? Like why would she just be randomly facing away from Scarlett? Like in my eyes, she would have been facing a person and been attacked from the back.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So I do think that it shows that there was actually 3 people involved in that incident, not just 2. So that's where I do think his story doesn't fully make sense.
Right.
And that's why I think when we hear Scarlett's, it makes a lot more sense in that we can actually think maybe he told half truth, but not the full truth and didn't explain his part in it, i.e. that he did stab her.
Yes.
Yeah.
I definitely see what you're saying. So after Brianna confessed to this and the whole trial is over, she is sentenced to life in prison with a minimum of 22 years, less the 352 days of the time served.
While she was awaiting trial.
Exactly. Eddie got almost the exact same sentence, except his minimum was only 20 years, minus the 352 days already served.
Yeah, with her confession, he did stab her less, I guess.
Yes.
So is that why? And plus also Scarlett was like the ringleader of it all.
Yeah, and based on what the judge said in a video I watched, she believed that 1, if they had never come together, this would have never happened, first of all. But 2, knowing the search history of the dark web and all those videos, she believes that Scarlett is far more evil than Eddie would have been on his own.
Yeah, like I don't think he would have committed a crime like this on his own at all, to be quite honest.
No way. Whereas Scarlett, she could have used someone else to help her do this. That's the belief anyways, not for sure. But if she was able to get Eddie to do it, she opened that conversation.
Yeah.
She opened that like sadistic side of the topic of conversation.
And not only that, I don't think it's a far stretch to think that like if she had continued to search these things and developed as an individual and aged, I guess, she could have had the potential to do this independently without help from somebody else at some point.
Exactly, Bev. So these 2 are going to be in jail for quite a long time. Unfortunately, all their prime years have been taken away because of their actions. And it makes me sad that Brianna has lost her life for absolutely no reason other than just being available. But these other two teenagers have ruined their lives from the choices they made.
Yeah, it's honestly a huge tragedy
All
any
around.
way you look at it.
Yeah. Now, this was so recent, so I'm sure that the two of them are going to be appealing their convictions, stuff like that. So we're going to have to keep ourselves updated on the story just to see what comes of these two over the next couple years, because I am curious to see what they would appeal against.
Absolutely. I would be curious as well.
All right, Bev. This was the sad case of Brianna Ghey. Thanks for listening.
Thanks for sharing.